stays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick, it's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day, yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to Project 53. It is time for us to put out our prediction on what this 53-man roster is going to look like on Tuesday at 1 o'clock Pacific time, as the 49ers have to cut down to 53 and have their official roster set in stone.
Accurate. They're going to be very specific at 1 p.m. Pacific, but we're going to be specific right here and right now. These are the predictions, right? This is what we think this roster will look like going forward in the 2021 campaign. Are we going to be right? Are we going to be dead wrong? Let us know your predictions down below in the comments section. And while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already, hit that notification bell. Join us on Patreon. Join us here on the YouTube channel. Participate with the Cutback Crew on Discord. Fantasy leagues, Madden leagues, whatever it is, whatever your heart desires, the Cutback is here for you. We're here to provide it all, including the Cutback shop where you can rep great merch just like that. But Ant, let's digress. Let's get into the nitty gritty and let's get into the quarterback room. You got a little bit of a teaser there with that gentleman, Jimmy Garoppolo, but how many quarterbacks are we officially keeping on our Project 53?
This is something we've been toying with for a while now, and listening to some of Kyle Shanahan's comments, him catching himself once and saying, we've got 2 quarterbacks on this team, and then eventually, we've got 3 quarterbacks on this team. Him saying that he wants to have 2 quarterbacks on the active roster, and the perfect scenario is to have 1 on the practice squad. It is our belief that it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance that are the 2 quarterbacks that are rostered, and ultimately they hope Nate Sudfeld makes it to the practice squad.
I think that's fair. I think it's entirely reasonable, and I think this is the route that Kyle Shanahan always wanted to go. The Jimmy and Trey experiment or experience, right? The Shana plan. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance manning the helm for this team in the 2021 season, because you and I both agree, right? If you need to go any further than that into your quarterback room, you're in a big, huge, gigantic trouble.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to. These are the 2 guys that you can rely on, right? Jimmy, who can operate that middle of the field, right? That those normal drives, can push the ball down the middle of the field, can push the ball into tight windows, middle of space, and has shown at times that he can push the ball downfield outside the numbers. And Trey Lance, right, the young, athletic, mobile guy who can do all of the big arm talent things, can fit the ball in the tight windows in a short amount of time because of the speed and the velocity at which the ball travels coming out of his hand. But does have some things that he needs to clean up. But what he does do for your offense, right, is take that 11-on-11 run game that you want to try and accomplish and let it come to its fruition, as well as the deep shots downfield that make teams who want to pack the box when Trey Lance is out there. Good luck. You're playing a very risky game.
Yeah, and you don't want to lose players at other positions, so you make sure that you have 2 guys here and leave that roster spot open for another position. Because let's be honest, you don't want to have to. You don't ever think you're going to use 3 quarterbacks in a game. And if you go through 2 quarterbacks for some reason, you just basically chalk that game up to a loss, and you live to fight another day. But if one of them got hurt, the next week you could bring Sudfeld up from the practice squad, and you could be good to go. So I think this is the way they want to go, and ultimately that's the way we believe they will go.
Correct. And then we move on to the running back room. And you have to start with the main man there, Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert surfing his way into the Cutback Crew here, but Raheem Mostert has set himself apart in terms of where he's at on this roster. He is for sure going to be running back numero uno. After that is a guy like Trey Sermon, who we feel has done enough good things, but I don't know if he's necessarily blown the roof off in terms of his performance and his production. But Trey Sermon falls in there for us at that second slot there for the running back room.
Very safe at number 2.
Yes.
I don't think there's really any question that these guys are the top 2 guys. Everyone else was the ones competing for roster spots. Raheem Mostert and Trey Sermon were, I think, very etched into stone. And as long as they were healthy, they were going to be 1 and 2.
Correct. After that, though, we have coming in at that 3 spot, drumroll Cutback Crew, Tasty Hasty. Tim Ryan, you're stealing my thunder. I don't like it. We came up with it first. The proof is in the video that we had, in which I called him Tasty Hasty. JaMychal Hasty coming out of left freaking field, because this is a guy at the start of this whole roster, right, that we were making this decision. He had one of the biggest hills to climb coming into this. Undrafted guy. They took 2 running backs in this draft. You brought in Wayne Gallman. We were sitting here going, at the end of last year, we felt this guy was a lock on this roster. Now he's got a hill to climb, and he climbed it pretty gosh darn quick.
Look explosive in preseason games 2 and 3. I mean, he really did take over. That was the moment where he took over the helm as far as moving up this depth chart and making this roster. He was on the fringe before that. He really was. They had done a very good job of building this running back room and making sure it was going to be, one of the best running back rooms in the league. And he had to go out there and have an excellent training camp, an excellent preseason, and he did just that. And the fact that he's going to make this roster is not surprising. It's just, I think it was always up in the air because we knew there was going to be some sort of a battle and some sort of a shift, right, in overall philosophy for the 49ers in interior run game. But Hasty's been able to run inside, he's been able to run outside, and he's run inside this depth chart, and he's going to make this roster.
Accurate indeed. He's going to make this roster. And then after that, we have Elijah Mitchell. That's right. Wayne Gallman is a no-go on this list. Elijah Mitchell, we both feel like did enough in this game in the run game offensively, as well as in the kick return special teams game to show he's a much more diverse guy. He's a younger guy. There's more things you can do with him right now on this roster, and that sucks because Wayne Gallman by no means is a bad running back.
No, Elijah Mitchell's very dynamic. I've liked the way he's ran. When I saw him run in person, the first time was at the open practice at Levi Stadium, and he has a forward lean, the one cut and go. It's so nice to see. There's explosion there. It was always going to be, could he get there in time? And I think really it came down to Hasty and Gallman because Elijah Mitchell, they didn't want to give up on that. 4.3 speed is legit. The physicality he runs with is there. So it came down to these couple guys, and unfortunately, Wayne Gallman, who's also a very good running back, somebody that I like a lot as far as an interior runner and somebody that can finish around the red zone, but he just wasn't able to make it, and mainly because these other guys' explosion outweighed, his lack of speed. But the way he finishes around the red zone is still better than most of them. That's what made it come down to the wire, but ultimately we had to go with those 4 guys because those guys have the most promise potential and have showed the most ability throughout the preseason.
Absolutely, and then obviously you cannot forget about Kyle Juszczyk rounding out that running back room there at 5. This is a solid group. This is a core group, right? You have a lot of guys who are diverse, can do a lot of different things, and that's the crazy thing about Elijah Mitchell. Also, we haven't really seen him in the pass game being utilized that much at all. And that's supposedly supposed to be one of his strengths and something that we saw him do very, very well during training camp at the practices that we were there for. So you add his dynamic there, you add Kyle Juszczyk's ability to pretty much do anything you need him to do, Raheem Mostert's speed, Trey Sermon's power, and the overall improvement from Jermichael Hasty. When Jeff Wilson Jr. gets back, there is going to be some issues here. Who goes where? Who do you move to where at that point? Is someone not healthy in which you can move off them to get Jeff Wilson back on this roster? There are definitely going to be some questions.
They're going to be very cautious and wait a long time for Jeff Wilson to come back.
That too.
They will not force the hand. Once the window has to open, they will play it completely out because they don't want to have to make a decision and lose one of these guys, because what you have right now is a situation where any running back that's in the game is dynamic and can make a big-time play for you, whether that is in the running game or in the passing game. The only thing that needs to happen from Elijah Mitchell and from Jermichael Hasty is they need to improve in their pass protection. They're not as good as Trey Sermon and Raheem Mostert right now, so that is an area they need to improve, where Wayne Gallman was very good at that. So those guys need to step it up. Jeff Wilson Jr. is very good in every aspect of the running back game. So these are things that they're going to have to learn and develop, but the things that Elijah Mitchell can do on special teams and Hasty as well outweigh the things that Wayne Gallman can do. They're on the roster. Kyle Juszczyk, of course, is the man, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's a very fun, exciting, explosive running back room.
I agree with you there. Definitely is. And let's talk about the guys who are going to open up the holes for these running backs, right? The guys, the offensive linemen who are going to be creating for these guys and giving them the ability, right, to do what they do best and utilize their skill sets. Obviously, at the left tackle spot, I mean, this shouldn't shock anybody, right? We have Trent Williams there. He's obviously going to be making this roster. Who do we have after that, Ant?
Yeah, after that, then you got Laken Tomlinson at left guard, of course. You bring in an all-pro caliber player like Alex Mack. He's for sure on this roster and starting at center. Your right guard is Daniel Brunskill, which hasn't been that big of a question here, especially once Aaron Banks wasn't able to play up to the level that people were expecting after the hype train of the draft. And then at right tackle, Big Mike McGlinchey, who is looking to have a bounce back year and so far has had a very good preseason and training camp. The added size and weight has been very nice for him, and he's going to be doing very well. So we have a nice 5 there to start. Is a very, very good group that can open a lot of holes and do very solid in pass protection, especially if this running game is going strong.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the big thing, right? This 5 is we're very comfortable with, and it's only improved from last season. And I would even argue since 2019, this group has only gotten better because you replaced Joe Staley, who was aging at that time, with a younger, just as good, if not better, version in Trent Williams. Laken Tomlinson has improved since that time. I hate to break it. I love Weston Richburg, but Alex Mack is an upgrade over Weston Richburg. Yeah. And at that point, it wasn't even Richburg because Richburg was out with an injury going into that Super Bowl run. So then on top of that, Parsons, maybe you can make an argument that Brunskill necessarily isn't an upgrade at right guard, but he hasn't been a downgrade.
Oh, he's definitely an upgrade at right guard.
I feel he is, but there are people who would argue that.
No, I mean, over who? Person? I mean, that is definitely an upgrade over 2019. He's definitely better than that. He's better in pass pro. He's better at getting to the second level blocks. Person had a lot of injury concerns.
That too.
And then as you brought up with Mac is an all-pro caliber player. Weston Richburg was a fringe Pro Bowl player. There's a huge difference between the two. But yeah, I think overall the interior offensive line has gotten significantly better. Laken Tomlinson is gotten better and better every year. He's very consistent. And the big part, he plays every single game. Same thing with Daniel Brunskill. They play and line up every single game, and that's what's important.
That's a huge importance.
Yep.
Big time. Listen, after that, next guy on the list, Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz is just a dynamic player. He can do a lot of different things for the 49ers team on the O-line, right? Whether it's tackle, whether it's guard, can pretty much play anywhere you need him to really play, and has shown that he can do it at a pretty good level.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly the swing tackle, but he's somebody that you can play interior or on the outside, and he can get it done. He plays with a lot of physicality. He's got that mental edge to him. He's able to get to second level. He's pretty good in pass pro. He's only going to develop. This is his first full training camp because of last year being cut short. So this guy's going to keep developing, keep getting better. I guarantee Coach Forster's very happy to have him here. The flexibility and versatility he has with this offensive line is what they're looking to get, and they see a lot of potential in him. Remember, they thought he might be the left tackle if they weren't able to get that trade for Trent Williams. So they have a lot of faith in this guy, a third-round grade initially, so he's somebody they can count on. He's going to be an impact player as far as if you have an injury or something, he can roll in and you not have any worries about the future of what he could do for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, but speaking of guys who are going to be playing most likely that swing tackle role, Jalen frickin' Moore, who has looked phenomenal, in my opinion, just based on the things that we've seen out of him in terms of his ability to hold up against the pass rush, long-term longevity over a game, the different looks that's being thrown at him, the fact that he really hasn't stumbled or fallen. That first game against the Chiefs, he had a couple of mishaps. Next week against the Chargers, not a whole lot happening there. Not a lot of pressure coming from Jalen Moore's side of the field. And we got to see him intermix right in the Week 3 preseason game a little bit on the interior as well as moving to the outside. So showing his flexibility and his range just makes him that much more dynamic and diverse with this offensive line group, which is desperately needed since Justin Skule won't be around.
Yeah, and he doesn't lack for athletic ability, which means he's able to make every single block you need him to make. He just has to get the technique and skill down. He's been working on left tackle pretty much all of training camp, getting a lot of the reps. He's gotten plenty of reps. They moved him inside. Now he got some reps there. He's a guy that can play on the interior or the exterior, depending on where you need him. I think he really is as good as Anthony Davis was when he came out. I think that the difference between that first and fifth round pick is not noticeable once you've gotten this guy on the field. I think that they're really close, and I think Jalen Moore can be a big-time player if needed this year. I think they'll give him more and more reps on the interior, so that way just in case Laken Tomlinson or Daniel Brunskill go down, you have him to be able to go in there and make plays. I like him on this offensive line. I like his versatility. I really, really love his athletic ability.
Agreed with you there 100%. And the next guy is Mr. Aaron Banks, standing there next to Mr. Colton McKivitz, having a good old time.
Yeah.
They're having some fun. But look, Aaron Banks was a guy that there was a lot of talk and hype around him being a guy that was going to push for that right guard spot. And then it became pretty apparent very quickly after that Week 1 preseason game. And for us, actually, even before that, when we went to the first practice at Levi's, the first time the Niners and fans were back in Levi's at the same time, that this guy has some work to do. He has some things he needs to clean up. but by no means has he not been cleaning those things up. He has slowly and steadily gotten better. Obviously, the shoulder stuff after that Chiefs game didn't help. It's kind of stunted his ability to get out on the field and see that development any further along.
Yeah.
But this guy is definitely going to get there in time and has shown a lot of promise so far.
He's proven to be the project that we thought he was going to be. When he first got drafted, our analysis initially was he lacks lateral movement. He's going to struggle with that sort of thing, so we're worried about it. And I think along the way, we listened to what Kyle Shanahan and then we're saying about Banks, and we kind of were trying to push him up there. Like we were trying to come around on that analysis and put him up there. And that's why I came to the point where I was like, well, I think he can push Daniel Brunskill. He cannot push Daniel Brunskill. He's not ready for that. He's got a lot of work, to do. I think they're going to ask him to cut weight. I think he's going to have, some development here. But I do see potential in him. By no means do I think he's Joshua Garnett. I think he's got some development to happen, but I think he'll get it done in the future. But they're going to have to work with him. But you're not going to cut a second-round pick, so 100% he's going to make this roster.
Shocking.
Yeah, is he one of the top 8 to 9 linemen on the team? That's to be debated. But he's a second-round pick, so you have to go ahead and have him in there and develop. But by the end of the season, I fully expect him to be towards the middle part of that top level. But right now, Jalen Moore has completely outperformed him.
I agree with you there. And look, this last one becomes very difficult when we're talking about guys who this last lineman is going to be, because there's a lot of names, right? There's the Tom Comptons of the world that can go in and play maybe interior, exterior, right? You had Sean Coleman's of the world. They brought back Kafusi. Maybe it's Kafusi. Do you keep the backup center in Brendel, right? There's a lot of options and a lot of ways to go about this. For us, at the end of the day, it came down to a few things. But Ant, why are we keeping Sean Coleman?
We're keeping Sean Coleman because Sean Coleman has a lot of ability to play on the outside. There is times where he might be considered, a very good tackle option. You have the fact that Trent Williams does get hurt sometimes. So if you have an interior injury and an exterior injury, maybe you want Jalen Moore to be playing on the inside. You can play Sean Coleman on the outside. He's a veteran with a lot of experience, not a rookie like Jalen Moore. So you can count on that. The real question was it Brendel or was it, Sean Coleman? And Brendel plays center, but I think we both believe that they could have Daniel Brunskill play center if needed. If something happened to Alex Mack, you go Daniel Brunskill, you play either Colton McKivitz or Jalen Moore at that right guard spot initially, and you just, hope Mack can get back. You hope it's not season ending or anything like that. But I think that is why we chose Coleman over Brendel, because we think that Daniel Brunskill could be that backup. And there's no reason to keep an extra center when you have somebody as capable as Brunskill.
Correct, and that's kind of where my thought process was with this as well for Sean Coleman. I know there are some people who would be saying, well, Tom Compton played pretty well out there at right tackle, and he also looked good there on the interior. And while I would agree with you there, there's one thing I don't trust Tom Compton to be able to do, and that would be to potentially play left tackle opposite, right? If something were to happen to Trent Williams, whereas Sean Coleman got in there yesterday, against the Raiders, got some reps in, and looked serviceable. He looked fine over there at left tackle. I didn't look concerned. And that's the big thing, is you want flexibility. Jalen Moore operated as a left tackle. If you need a Jalen Moore to operate as a right tackle, you don't have that many questions or concerns about him being able to go to the right side and operate. Sean Coleman operated at left tackle fairly well. You don't have as many concerns with him flipping over to the other side. Tom Compton hasn't operated on that left side of the line. He operated solely and strictly as the right guard or right tackle. He doesn't have that necessarily flexibility to go to the other side of the line and play and operate, whereas the other two potentially do. The possibility is there because that left side's a little bit harder to play on, and you're coming from the quarterback's backside typically. So it's more important on that side. They have shown at least the capabilities from the two of them. That I like the options you now have behind Trent Williams and behind Mike McGlinchey with those two, as well as the fact that you also have Colton McKivitz who can bounce around and play in a bunch of different spots. Brunskill can play in a bunch of different spots, right? Let's not also forget that Jalen Moore is now being flexible and playing inside and outside as well. So now you have literally three guys. Three guys that you can be flexible with. Brunskill you can be flexible with. Jalen Moore you can be flexible with. Colton McKivitz you can be flexible with. This just makes sense. And now you have a guy in Sean Coleman who can really be that security blanket on the exterior, right? The very outskirts of that O-line in case something drastic were to happen.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to those two guys, though. Jake Brendel and Sean Coleman. And, it's just all about value. We know that Kyle Shanahan and his dad as well value offensive tackles first and then center. So if you go by that category, Usually you think you're going to do that, but we'll see what Forrester says as well. But I think it could be either one of those guys. We just lean towards Coleman because of his skill set and his ability, the fact that he's a veteran. Yeah, Brindle's got some experience too. He's a nice veteran as well, but choose the left tackle over the center in this case.
Also, a better chance, too, that the tackle isn't going to be slipping to the practice squad, whereas the backup center could.
100%.
Yep. Look, from there, you got to go to the tight ends. The guy's just outside.
Wow, this one ought to be tough.
Oh, man, it's going to be really, really hard. In fact, it's so hard that we debated heavily over whether or not George Kittle was number one on this list, but eventually we settled on it, right? From there, after that, obviously, you're going to be going with Ross Dwelley.
Yeah.
And then for us, this is a no-brainer. It's Charlie Warner, because Charlie Warner is a guy who has had a lot of success this offseason with this team. He's done a lot of great things with this team. He has come so far in such a short amount of time as a route runner and a pass catcher. It just makes sense for him to be there. We could talk to we're blue in the face about George Kittle. We could talk to we're blue in the face about Ross Dwelley as well. But Charlie Warner has got to get some kudos and some props. This guy has completely turned the corner.
Yeah, I mean, we got to give him some props on what he's done in the receiving game. He's improved vastly. His blocking has gotten better from last year. Overall technique, not letting people sneak inside of him. He had a little bit of pass pro issues in the first game. You know what he didn't have in the second game? Pass pro issues, which means he cleaned it up. That's all you're expecting from a young player that's developing. But we've seen that the quarterbacks feel confident going to him. They've even tried to force, tight balls to him. So
it's true.
He's got a lot of respect in that locker room. He worked very hard in this offseason, and it's showing up very well. I look forward to seeing his development, and I think he's the perfect complement to George Kittle and Ross Dwelley because he is an excellent blocker who is adequate in the pass game right now. I look for him to continue to develop and eventually be even better than that. But I think overall this is a nice tight end room, and 3 felt right.
Felt right, and you gotta find a way to save some spots for some other positions.
You do,
including the wide receiver position, right? Because there's things going on here. Look, first few names are obvious. They're obvious, folks. Brandon Ayuk, he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a star. You'll love to see it. Deebo Samuel, a guy who's a very super important, ridiculously important to this offense and the horizontal aspect of this offense, right? After that, for us, no-brainer. It has to be Trent Sherfield there at 3. He has definitely earned this.
Yeah, he's come out in this preseason and training camp and earned his roster spot on this football team. He went from a guy that was a fringe to make this roster to a secure spot to one of the top guys that you can count on. He did that all on his own by being very good in every aspect of the game, showing more explosiveness and making you scratch your head and wondering what the heck Cliff Kingsbury was doing. You don't let a player like this get away, but he is a nice complement to what the 49ers like to do and a nice fill-in for what Kendrick Bourne did in that role. But he's proven to have even better hands than Bourne did. So that is good for us as far as third down conversions and that sort of thing. I feel confident in these top-level wide receivers. I don't agree that there's a third receiver per se. I think that when Kyle Shanahan views a room, he sees it as 6 guys. So I'm not going to say Trent Sherfield is one of the top 3 guys, but he was one of the top guys that we wanted on this depth chart.
And he was the third name that popped up to mind as soon as we started making the list. So that's why he's there at the 3rd slot.
100%.
After that, Mohamed Sanu, a guy that was catching some flack yesterday in the reaction show, right?
Yeah.
People in the Cutback Crew a little bit getting a little antsy, and maybe Sanu needs to go. And it's like, I don't know about that. He does a lot of things in this offense very well. We saw it in that Week 2 preseason game against the Chargers, his ability to get open, short, intermediate range of the field, and especially when you get in the red zone, big body, big size. You don't have to necessarily be faster than everybody. Just be bigger. Box them out. Get into that, right, the zone. Sit in that zone, be big, and then go make big catches when their quarterback fires one in there like Trey Lance did against the Chargers. Sanu is going to be a very crucial piece to this offense, especially in third down situations.
And also the value he brings to the room as far as the way Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and those guys look up to him. They talked about how big it was when he got cut last year and how it affected them. Now he's back in the room and he's bringing that veteran leadership and experience that's going to help all these guys in this room. So that part of the game can't be missed either, because he's going to be a big time for them in that area. I think he can contribute on the field as well, but it's going to be that area as well that he's very much leaned on.
Absolutely. And now we come down to the final 2. 4 have been slated, right? We have slotted 4 guys in. These are the 4 guys most 49ers fans feel are the case. And now is where the dislike button on this video hopefully doesn't get hit, because now we got receivers 5 and 6, and you have 49ers fans all over the spectrum.
4 guys with the possibility to make these 2 spots.
It's true, right? You have your Jalen Hurds of the world, you have your Travis Benjamins of the world, you have your Jawan Jennings, and you have your Simba Websters. Those are the 4 names that everyone's talking about. Everyone's got their different combination of 2 guys.
River Craycraft.
Simba Webster was the last name that was on that list, but it's fine. Listen, everyone's got their favorite 2 combination for these last 2. Ant, I'm going to let you start with number 5 on this list for the wide receiver room. The drama is building. Who is it?
It's Jalen Hurd. I'm just going to say it. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were very clear that all Jalen had to do was stay healthy in this football game, and he was going to be on this roster because he's one of the top 6 players, and they have a vision for what he can be. And they showed a little bit of that vision in the game. The fact they were able to get him the ball in a variety of different ways. Yes, he had a couple of drops, and what do you expect from a man that hasn't played in 2 years? Do I expect him to catch those balls in the future? Yes, he better catch those footballs in the future, or he will end up in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse, and those doghouses aren't nice to be in. You end up getting, moved somewhere else. So I think he'll be just fine, and the way that they're going to use him is going to be dynamic in this offense. It was nice to see him running around full speed, but he's 100% on this team. There's nobody like him on the roster that can do the things he can do at 6'5", 230 pounds. People have only got a glimpse, a little taste of what is coming. He's going to be fun to watch, and they're going to be explosive when he's on the field.
Yeah, accurate indeed. Listen, Jalen Hurd is everything that you just said, and potentially could be even more than all of that. He has the potential to be one of the best wide receivers on this roster, one of the best wide receivers in the league. Obviously, health is the big thing. He's got to be on the field. So far, so good. Let's check the box. He made it through preseason, folks. He played in the game. He came out the other side, and now we potentially get to see 14 in action in the regular season, and Ant is that much closer to that number 14 jersey. He can almost taste it now.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting ready to push send on that.
He's almost there. He is almost there indeed. Tuesday cannot get here fast enough.
That's true.
But number 6 on the roster, this now becomes even more contested, right? Because how do you make this decision? Do you go with the speed of Travis Benjamin and the diversity, right? The ability to add something to the special teams game in the return aspect? Do you go with Jawan Jennings, a guy who has played his behind off, right? This preseason, done everything you needed him to do. Unfortunately, gets the heel injury right leading into this 3rd preseason game, but does tough it out, does get himself out there. A guy, another big body guy, physical guy, does a lot of the same things that Mohamed Sanu does in the body, in the framework, right? Size closer to Jalen Hurd. Or do you go with Simba Webster, who hasn't shown as much in the receiving aspect, but has definitely shown he's someone to contend with in the return game? This became very, very tough. But at the end of the day, both of us felt one thing was very, very important to Kyle Shanahan, and that was speed and the ability for a guy to be not only just a guy who can take the top off the defense, but also be physical, something that Kyle specifically talked about in his KMBR interview, and that's Travis Benjamin.
Yeah, we agonized over this one. Between Jawan Jennings and Travis Benjamin, this one was, I literally refused to write a name down for a while. I was just looking or thinking, trying to figure it out, because I like the things that both of them do. I've been a fan of Travis Benjamin since they signed him. I think that he can operate in this offense very well. I think Kyle knows how to use him and his skill set. The way that he's able to get behind defenders, not only to make big plays like the touchdown he made against the Chargers, but also the pass interference calls against the Raiders, show that he has a added element to his game that the 49ers are missing. Brandon Ayuk, he can win deep. Deebo Samuel on occasion can win deep, but Travis Benjamin can win deep regularly because of his quick speed. Jawan Jennings, the problem with him is he kind of has similar characteristics to guys already on this roster. So you would be doubling up, where Travis Benjamin's a little bit different in the elements and things that he can do. I think that Jawan Jennings is a fine player, but also a guy that you have a better shot of getting on your practice squad. If Travis Benjamin goes, you're probably not going to get him back. So it's a rough decision. It's a tight decision. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way, but ultimately we thought Travis Benjamin makes this roster. But I do think it could go either way. I think it's that close.
We could 100% be wrong on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel that we're necessarily right on this. It could go 100% either way.
Yeah.
The thing that sold it for me was the selling point was Kyle's recent comments, and then that translating in the game. We saw them operating underneath to Travis Benjamin in certain short routes, him beating guys short. And then I saw him on the outside blocking for Jalen Hurd, being physical out in the block game. And then I see him beating guys and toasting guys deep on deep routes and getting pass interference calls. Those types of things show me that Kyle Shanahan trusts the diversity and the range of which he can do things. And honestly, it's sad to say, one play doesn't ever do a guy in. But that touchdown in the red zone that Juwan Jennings drops did him no favors.
No, and we might want to think, too, we got Travis Benjamin with a possible concussion. There could be the possibility that he makes the roster, they IR him, and then they add Juwan Jennings back to the active roster until Travis Benjamin comes back. So there will be some interesting things there. I don't know if the concussion thing, if it's real, like if he actually has a concussion. I'm sure it'll be, come out as this video is coming out. But we'll have a pretty good idea after that how that, is going to affect him. But I think if you're just going on complete merits, just the abilities that they have, it's razor thin. But he just adds Travis Benjamin just adds an extra element that Juwan Jennings doesn't add that separates him from the rest of the group.
And that's just the deep ball aspect, because if you're talking about underneath operating, Juwan Jennings has done an incredible job.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate is Trent Sherfield, right? It is doing that same thing. We thought Juwan Jennings was going to be the Kendrick Bourne role. Trent Sherfield is filling that role and taking it to another level.
Correct.
Because he's also able to win down the field. So I think that really hurt Juwan Jennings. You add the fact that Muhammad Sanu showed back up, and he's filling that role as well. The only thing that could help Juwan Jennings, if someone like Muhammad Sanu did get cut, then Juwan Jennings is 100% on this team. I just don't expect it.
I don't expect it either. We go from the offensive side of the ball. We've named our 25 guys there. We flip over to the defense, and we have to start with the D-line, Ant, because it's always a fun place to be. It's always a fun place going on. Who do we got at the start here with this defensive line?
Eric Armstead.
Shocking.
Armstead is your base 4-3 defensive end. He's going to be, doing what he does, and I think we're both very confident in his abilities.
He's going to be eaten?
He's going to be eaten.
He's going to eat.
Yeah, he's definitely going to eat, and then, on these third and long, he's going to move inside, and he's going to be a mismatch problem for guards because he's too quick for them, so that's going to be nice for the 49ers. And then, after that, I think we all know who we have to go with next, and that's Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is very solid, and we know he's going to be healthy now. He's going to be ready to go for Detroit. He's 100% going to make this 53-man roster. I think those two are easy to get to.
What's that, Nick? Why weren't you first? Armstead, it starts with an A.
Yeah,
that was the only reason.
Alphabetical.
Yeah, don't get too upset with us. Look, after that, obviously you got to go with the big 5'5", Mr. D Ford, who's shown he's healthy, he's ready, and another guy, Ant, that we thought way back last season, end of last season, literally put out a video with within a month of season ended that D Ford was going to come back and going to be better than ever. He looks like it so far. He's looked phenomenal in joint practices. He's looked phenomenal in practices itself when he's going and out there and running. Listen, he's going to be limited. He's not going to be the D Ford that's out there on every single snap or even 50-60% of snaps. But he's going to be out there for 30-40% of snaps, hopefully. And if he's out there for 30% or more of snaps, Ant, he is going to be a nightmare for defenses.
Right. John Lynch kind of talked about this in his KMBR interview, that they're going to have starters, they're going to have setup guys, and they're going to have closers. There's the closer. All right, he's going to get out there, and he's going to close on third downs. He's going to make sure they get off the field with explosiveness. They're going to limit his snaps, but you're hoping you don't have too many snaps that he has to go in on third and long, and he's going to get out there and he's going to make plays. And he's so scary when he's coming off the edge. Nobody bends the corner. Nobody has a first step like this guy. And if you can get out of him what he was producing in 2019, this defense is going to be dang near impossible to stop.
Have fun, everybody else, because even when you get that done, you got guys like DJ Jones right there on the inside, on the interior, blowing up the interior run, or just plowing through Seahawks centers to smash Russell Wilson in the stupid face.
Yeah, this was a no-brainer. DJ Jones, I was so shocked he was coming back. I thought for sure someone was going to throw a lot of money at him. They did not. And I appreciate that because we needed him to come back. And he's now this interior defensive line is so good because he's leading the charge.
That he is, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do. Also, I want a Zach Kerr and DJ Jones combination sack, and we can get some sort of silly dance because the two of them seem to be having a lot of fun at practices. I want to see that on the field.
Oh, 100%.
It's going to be a good time.
Definitely a lot of fun. This interior defensive line is going to have a lot of fun.
That's for sure, and we didn't even talk about Javon Kinlaw, who is primed and ready to just eat everybody in front of him and just solidify, right? He's ready to make everyone his squirrel. That's what he's ready to do this year. And I'll tell you what, he looked great in that Raiders game yesterday.
Yeah, and another no-brainer, right? I don't think we've went through anyone yet that anyone's shocked is going to make this football team. These guys are very, very good football players, and they're going to make big impacts on the 49ers team this year.
Absolutely. And then the next no-brainer is Samson Ebukam, who's primed and ready to go. He looked phenomenal yesterday. If you watched our earlier video, he was not only my block is hot defensive player of the game, he was also in the hurt business because he put the hurt on people, and he's going to be doing that not just to quarterbacks, but to tackles, running backs. Everyone in the league better start taking notice. Samson Ebukam is going to be a problem.
Cue the setup, man. This is that guy that's going to be in there, and he's going to get the game to D Ford situations. He has a similar skill set, and he's developing at a very rapid pace. You add that 4-5 speed potential, he's going to be able to put Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson in very bad, precarious situations and be able to get after him. This was a great move for the 49ers bringing him in, and he's going to develop, and he's going to fill that Kerry Hyder role, except for the fact that he's a lot quicker and not going to be able to get beat to the outside as easily.
Which you love to see.
Oh, definitely.
You don't want that happening at all.
Never break contain.
Don't ever break contain at all. And then there's the man himself right there, Zach frickin' Kerr, a guy who is going to be not only a problem on the interior, Ant, but this is going to be a guy who is going to bring that energy, right? That liveliness to this defense. He's definitely not, he's not a K1 Alexander replacement in terms of the energy, but this guy with DJ Jones, they bring a lot of hype to this D line. And also, Chris Kasarik loves putting his hands all over this man.
Well, the way you saw the defense respond to him getting the sack means that his personality and the way he goes about football is infectious. You want those kind of people on your football team, especially when the production meets those type of things. He is a big-time player for this team. From the moment they signed him, I was so excited about this. I knew what he could present and bring to this football team, and he's done it the whole time. Whenever people would talk about him possibly getting cut, I would absolutely cringe because this guy is one of the best players on their team as far as defensive line, and he's going to be a nice, solid rotational piece with DJ Jones. Before, when DJ Jones used to come out, you used to lose something. Now when DJ Jones comes out, you lose very little because this guy can compete at a high level. One heck of a run stopper, and he's proven now that he can get after it with the pass game. He's going to be exciting to watch. The 49er fans are going to enjoy the excitement and exuberance that he's going to show.
Absolutely. Zach Kerr, looking forward to everything that you're going to bring to the table this year. Because after that, Mo Hurst. Now, this might be a name for some people that it's like, what? You're going to keep this guy, but he's hurt. He's not going to be available for a little bit of time, up to a month. How can you justify it? Watch his play. Go back and watch the preseason. If you get a chance to watch anything from practices from the 49ers, check it out. Because Maurice Hurst lit up. Matter of fact, you can go watch our full 11-on-11 scripted practice from Levi's, and you can watch him dominate Aaron Banks for almost an entire 20-minute session. It was absolutely impressive to watch Mo Hurst out there that day, and Mo Hurst has continued to build on that performance in preseason. The ankle injury is unfortunate, but by no means does that mean you get rid of this guy. This guy is easily one of the best eight or nine defensive linemen you have on this team.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you saw Maurice Hurst get hurt, it was a question right away, like what they were going to do. But the fact that they kept him through that cut signaled to me that he was going to be on this roster. You put that with the fact that everyone was very excited about Kevin Givens last year and the ability that he has. Maurice Hurst has had a way better training camp and way better preseason than Kevin Givens has ever had. This guy's athletic ability and the way he's able to get down the line of scrimmage is almost unmatched on this football team. He's a very good three-tech. He's somebody that you can count on to make good plays in the interior. You want this guy because he has an added pass rush element that some of the other interior guys don't have. He's very, very good at it. You don't want to lose him, so you make sure you secure him. We've went through 1 week already without him, so you got the little timetable going. Will he be ready for Detroit? That might be a tough ask for a high ankle sprain, but we're starting to get to time where he can come back for Philly, and we know for sure he could come back for Green Bay. So that is kind of the timetable we're working at. We also have the added thing that possibly he makes the initial 53-man roster so they don't lose him. Put him on short-term IR, which would get him to that point where he could come back. Re-sign one of these guys that you cut, and then they could play. So there are going to be some games, but you don't want this guy to get cut. He will get picked up by somebody else, and you want him on your football team.
You 100% want him on the football team. And Ant, maybe there's a guy that we're going to be cutting from this group specifically that we have this in mind for, but we'll get there, Cutback.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, look, up next after that, Arden Key. I apologize for the Raiders colors there, but I figured I'd give him one last look at himself in that black and silver because he'll never be wearing it again. He's going to be in the red and gold. It's going to look beautiful on him. But Arden Key is a guy who has operated very well as a base 4-3 down guy for this defense, and is going to be a guy, again, another guy that might be a setup guy for the 49ers.
Yeah, and you saw last year Deion Jordan had, 3.5 sacks?
It's true.
This guy's more athletic, more talented than Deion Jordan was at that stage in his career. He'll be able to add that. And I think the epitome of what Arden Key can be for your football team is in this game, they ran a little quick screen to the outside. Arden Key was cut at the line of scrimmage and then got up and ran the guy down from behind. That athletic ability and the way that he puts all that effort in is going to be on every single 49ers front office person's mind. Chris Kasarik, I guarantee, loves that hustle. You need to have this guy on your football team. The fact that he can play base 4-3 downs, especially with Jordan Willis starting the season on suspension, you definitely need this guy. Him and Armstead can rotate, and Bosa and all them can rotate, where Ebukam and them add a different element to the game. So I think his length and his speed are what gets this guy on the roster, and I think he's going to have a very good season, more productive than Deion had last year.
I agree with you there. And I just like all the things that Arden Key has done so far with this group. I look forward to seeing how he's able to continue to build it. But this is what I mean. This is a guy who is now sitting at 9, right? He's the ninth defensive lineman with this group. It was going to be very, very hard for us to keep more than 10, which means we still got some names there and only one spot. And there's guys who've done a lot of great things. Contavious Street is finally first training camp in a while where he's been healthy, ready to go, put together a good camp. Kevin Givens obviously had a good camp. He's been doing good things in preseason games. You had Alex Barrett, who's shown out and done a lot of things. There's the Jordan Willis name, but you don't have to worry about Jordan Willis. Thank goodness gracious. That would have made this just 10 times more difficult than it already was because he's suspended for the first 6 games and is on that exempt list. So, Ant, with that being said, what decision did we come to?
Yeah, you had Yarborough as well.
It's true, Yarborough. I almost forgot.
That could have made the team. Darion Daniels, who plays inside. I'm not a huge fan of Darion Daniels, but he had some moments this year where he looked much improved. Big props to Chris Kasarik. But when it came down to Kevin Givens and Contavious Street. And the decision came down to who, kind of fit what the 49ers were trying to put together as a complete, defensive roster. And we ultimately decided that the one that's outplayed the other was Contavious Street made this roster and is the 10th defensive lineman, meaning that we had to cut Kevin Givens, which is absolutely crazy because the hype surrounding Kevin Givens coming into training camp was huge, that he was potentially could be a starter on this football team. And now the way that the 49ers have built it and put it together, he might be off this roster. This one, another one that could go either way between the two of them. We just think Street is better in the run game than
Givens.
Than Givens is. Thank you. And gotcha. Yeah, I appreciate that. We actually think Givens is a little bit better in the pass game,
correct,
but not the area that he's going to be asked to be the best at. They're going to have other people that are going to be able to do that with the fact they got D Ford, Ebukam, Armstead, and those guys are going to play those significant downs. Kinlaw. There's no reason to have this guy out there in that situation. So you would rather have somebody like Street that could come in and give Kinlaw a break on obvious rundowns. And that is why he ultimately makes this roster.
Correct. And I feel also that Contavious Street has put together a more consistent camp. He looked very good in the first week 1 preseason game, very good in week 2, solid again in week 3. Kevin Givens had a little bit of a drop-off in that second game.
100%.
He dropped off. He didn't have the type of performance that he needed to have to solidify himself on this roster. Listen, he's had some good practices. He's put together a good training camp overall. But consistency is also going to matter on this D-line group. You have to be able to play at a high level for the entirety of the time that you're out there and be able to execute and do the things you need to do. He has struggled sometimes in the run game, and I've seen him a couple times. Double teams are coming. You need to get skinny. You need to, you can't get driven back 4 or 5 yards, and Kevin Givens is getting taken for a joyride. We cannot have that. We cannot be a team that can give up that much space in the run game because, again, if a team can just rely on running the football against us, you take away one of our biggest strengths, which is the pass rush. We got to be able to slow the run down, put teams in bad situations, make them try and throw, and then when they do, punish them for it.
Yeah, gap integrity is very important, and you're right. In that game against the Chargers, Givens was getting drove off his spot, which created running lanes for not just the running backs, but the quarterback. Easton Stick was able to get up there and make plays, and you can't have that. We saw Contavious Street have a little bit of problems with that in the Raiders game where he got off his spot. But he's done it consistently where he stays in the area where he needs to be. That gap integrity is so important. that makes it easier. When you can occupy blockers, you make it easier for your linebackers to be able to flow downhill. The problem early on in the Chargers game was there was a push from the Chargers offensive line against these defenders, Givens in particular, and they were pushing him into the linebackers, and the linebackers weren't able to get downhill and fill their window and fill their hole. So, yeah, 100% I think that is the reason. I never would have thought this was going to come to this. If you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have told you I thought Givens would make it over Street, but Street came out and proved it. He won the job, and he deserves it.
He does deserve it indeed. And now we go to a room that isn't as hard to pick. That linebacking core. Not as difficult of a room to solidify certain guys. Obviously, Fred frickin' Warner.
Right.
He's all-pro. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw, who's about to be all-pro. That's right. Knock on wood.
I'm going Pro Bowl.
You're going Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go Pro Bowl Dre then. Pro Bowl Dre, almost all-pro Dre. Then after that, Azeez Al-Shaair, a guy that we didn't get to see a lot of in the preseason.
Yeah.
The elbow injury happened. He had the knee stuff as well. But this guy's going to get healthy. He's going to be ready to go. But also a guy that you don't necessarily need to rely on as heavily because we're going to shift to, I think you and I both agree with this, more of a nickel-type look at times, which means Al-Shaair doesn't necessarily need to be on the field a lot.
Al-Shaair will play 20 to 25% of the snaps because he's only going to play that 4-3 base, Sam linebacker spot. So you're not counting on him as much. I mean, a quarter of the defensive snaps is still a significant amount of snaps, but he can handle it. He's been the backup middle linebacker for Fred Warner for a while.
Quite some time.
Yeah, he's able to play all three linebacker spots with consistency. He's gotten better and better about shedding blocks and being able to fill his window and make plays, getting downhill and making tackles. Would like to see him be more physical at the point of contact and drive the running back. But this is just me being hypercritical as someone that's worked with linebackers in the past. But I think that he's a very serviceable player and somebody the 49ers can feel confident in. And playing next to Fred and Dre, they have a very good linebacker group.
Agreed with you there. And then how do you like this one, Ant? How do you like this one for number 4? Marcel Harris is the 4th linebacker right now for us on this team.
Yeah, Marcel Harris is definitely the 4th linebacker. The way that he's able to play pass concepts is what is going to get him on this football team. Because when you have him out there, you know that in the pass game he can be successful. Plus, he gives you the versatility and flexibility of being able to play a bunch of different things, whether that is blitzing or dropping him into coverage because he understands this defense from a coverage standpoint. You can end up having him in a deep third, even though that's not the most successful situation. You also don't have to worry about him matching up with running backs or tight ends because he's done that on a consistent basis as a safety. So to me, there's just too much flexibility to be able to move off him. His play in the Raider game ultimately seals the deal for him. And the fact that he's a huge contributor on special teams just puts that bow and ribbon on top of the present.
Too diverse. He takes what Demetrius Flanagan-Foles did the last few years and cranks it up to a 50. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Plus,
he's a hitter, bro.
He is in the hurt business.
Yeah,
well,
100%.
I mean, the 2020 hurt business, but he's going to be in the 2021 hurt business. It's just a matter of time.
Oh, guaranteed.
Yeah, guaranteed. Matter of fact, he's like Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey. He's got a spot. It'll come in time. But look, that means those 4, right? 5th linebacker. Are we keeping it? Are we keeping a 5th linebacker?
Yeah, we are.
We're rolling with 4. We're keeping 5. Okay, we're keeping a 5th one, folks. We definitely talked about this beforehand, so this is not scripted in any way, shape, or form. Look, number 5. There's a couple of names. There's the guy that you've been very big on and has shown. He's proved. He's balled out this preseason. Jonas Griffith. And then there's Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, who's had some highs, he's had some lows. This is a tough one, Ant. What are the 49ers going to do with this last linebacker spot?
I think it comes down to how you weigh it and who you believe has more potential down the road. I think they think Jonas Griffith has more potential down the road, but they need somebody that can contribute to the football team right now in case of injury. You need somebody that can step in. You've got Dre Greenlaw over there. Now you think he's going to be healthy, but he's been nicked up. You've had Al-Shaair who's going to be nicked up. Flanagan-Foles can play that position right now. Jonas Griffith went in there, played it well, but didn't play it out of this world. You have Marcel Harris. So it really comes down to that. It's going to be a hard decision. I think that all 3 of the undrafted guys at linebacker all have proven themselves to be very adequate to play in the NFL, and on another roster could easily be the 5th guy. I just think, unfortunately, on this team, the fact that DeMeco Ryans is a very big fan of Flanagan-Foles, the Flanagan-Foles special teams outweighs the other guys, and he ultimately makes this roster as the 5th guy. I would rather it be Jonas for the mere fact I think he could develop into something special down the road, but they might be able to get him to the practice squad because I think a lot of people are going to see what we see on film is that he still has a lot to clean up, and eventually he's going to be a great linebacker. He's not a great linebacker right now. So as a team, can you take a guy like this and stash him and hope that he can get better along the way? Because if he has to contribute, he might not be ready.
He might not be ready, and that's the big thing is the flexibility. I think Demetrius is more flexible right now. Jonas could be that Swiss Army knife tool that you can have in the future, but it's not there yet. And that's hard to say because, I mean, this is another guy, right? Think about Jawan Jennings. I would argue that Jawan Jennings definitely played his butt off and played his way into a roster spot, and then circumstance is just going to prevent him from taking that roster spot. It's the same thing with Jonas Griffith. He put together the camp that he needed to have. He did the things that he needed to do. Alshire went down. He stepped in. He stepped up. He played great. He's played himself into a roster spot, but unfortunately, there's a lot of talent everywhere, and there's certain positions in which we can't make bigger sacrifices in order to get this guy onto the roster.
Yeah, and they gave Hilliard and Sullivan their run at linebacker, and I thought both of them looked very, very good. You see how good the 49ers are at developing linebackers. So we're going to see what happens. Now, the only thing is, Alex, is D'Amico Ryan stood on a table for Jonas Griffith to be signed last year. He really wanted him, and he just advocated for him. If D'Amico Ryan stands on a table again and says, I absolutely want this guy, he could be one of the best linebackers if I am able to work with him and develop him, in a couple years. They are going to say, okay, because he's had years to develop these other guys. Flanagan Foles has more development and is not that much farther ahead. So if that happens, then ultimately they could keep him on this team because I think they are very high on him. He's very athletic, very big for his size. He checks all the boxes. But D'Amico Ryans is going to have to be the guy that steps up and says, you know what, we need to keep this guy. And then Richie Hightower is going to have to say, you know what, he's at least adequate on the special teams game. He's not as good as Flanagan Foles, but he did make some tackles in the kickoff game, which could help his chances. So that's going to be a tough decision. Once again, razor thin. Razor
thin, and again, a one that I think you and I both feel like could go either way.
Yeah, it could. I won't be shocked if it ends up being Jonas Griffith at all.
No, not at all. And I honestly, I won't hate it and won't be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they actually pulled the trigger on that.
I'll be happy.
I'll be very happy.
I would prefer Jonas in my own personal opinion.
I'm kind of leaning that way as well.
Yeah.
Leaning that way.
But we're trying to predict what they're going to do, not what we would do.
It's not our 53-man roster. It's what we think the 49ers 53-man roster is going to be. There is a slight difference there, folks.
Yeah.
Slight difference. Look, at the cornerback spot, always questions in terms of depth and things of that nature, but there's no questions in terms to who's number one, Jason Verrett, who's number two, Emmanuel Moseley. And then things start to heat up and get interesting because who could be the two guys behind your Emmanuel Moseley and your Jason Verrett? And we talked about this a little bit. We sat down, we discussed, we looked at the tape, we did all the groundwork. Who's sliding in at 3?
I think it's going to be Dante Johnson. I do. I think Dante Johnson's going to be that guy. He's just been too consistent as far as playing on the outside. But he gives you the flexibility to play inside if needed as well. I know they've been working on Diamador Lenore playing inside, but that transition in a 1 or 2 or 3 weeks is a big transition to make. Where Dante Johnson, it seems like they didn't even need to see any more from him in the preseason, that they were comfortable. Let's let the rookies get all the reps. We're going to make sure that we keep this guy because Ambry Thomas's performance so far in camp and preseason hasn't lent you to believe that you could cut an extra guy and keep an extra defensive lineman. So you're going to have to keep somebody else in this secondary, somebody else at this corner position. And Dante Johnson's just been solid. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. He's been solid.
And that's what you need out of the guy who's going to be that third guy in this group, that extra piece there with these gentlemen. After that, the guy that is going to be the rookie after this that's going to be in that slot who's coming in is going to be Diamador Lenore.
Yeah, Diamador Lenore has played very good during the preseason. He's super successful inside and outside, and he definitely needs to be on this roster. So this is a no-brainer. You're not going to give up on this 5th-round pick. He has huge potential. He's going to develop. By the end of the season, 100% this guy will be cornerback 3.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I don't think there's any doubt in your mind that that's the case there. The guy who's definitely got some work, and it's the guy it's going to be just making this roster by the skin of his chinny chin, is obviously going to be Ambry Thomas.
You're not going to move off a 3rd-round pick, but it is the reason his play so far isn't. You're not able to move off of Dante Johnson.
Correct.
You just can't do that. You need to make sure you have that guy that you feel comfortable with, and I don't think they would feel comfortable if something happened to Verrett and Moseley and you had to stick out Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore. I think they'd feel comfortable on one side, but Ambry Thomas would struggle. He sometimes lacks physicality, which shouldn't be a problem. That must be an effort thing because the guy can actually be very physical. And then also he should understand concepts of coverage because of where he played and who he played for in college at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, and the way they run a pro-style defense. But that hasn't happened. He's having a little bit of a transitional issue, so we need to give this guy time to grow. But you can't let this guy slip off your roster because you used a third-round pick. You traded up to get him. You need to make sure you do this.
Absolutely. You have to make sure you do this. You have to keep Dontae Johnson for this reason, to give this guy a chance and give him an opportunity and not put too much pressure. Let this kind of work his way into it. Because let's not forget, he hasn't played snaps since 2019. So it's been a little bit of time since Ambry Thomas has been on the field. And we're talking the jump from college football to professional football. That's a big gap. And then obviously, last but definitely not least on this list, he just goes last because he's K'Wan Williams.
He's in his own role.
He's the shark. He's in his own role. He's not like the rest of these guys. But K'Wan Williams' picture, for some reason, isn't popping up. So hopefully I'll be able to figure that out yet. But K'Wan Williams is going to be that last guy in that slot for this team. He has done everything that he needs to do, right, to be not only successful in this defense, but to make this defense operate at an extremely, extremely high level.
Yeah, and let me clarify one thing. I said they traded up for Ambry. I know they didn't. They picked him at 102. That was the 49ers' normal pick. But K'Wan Williams is the bona fide, best slot nickel corner on this team. It's not even a question.
Nope.
The dude is a very solid player. The Shark is going to be dynamic out there. When he's on the field, the 49ers defense is tremendously better. This is maybe one of the biggest signings of the entire offseason for the 49ers, being able to bring him back. Chose the 49ers over the Kansas City Chiefs for a very similar offer, and he's going to find that value here with this team. So I love him as a player. I think he's very good. You ask him to do anything, he can pretty much do it. So that's a no-brainer.
That's the thing, right? There's 5 names here that I'm very comfortable with. And I don't think I would have felt that way heading into the season. I thought it was going to be 3 or 4. There's 5 now. Obviously Jason Verrett, obviously Emmanuel Mosley. Dontae Johnson has surprised me in ways that I didn't think I would be surprised by. I didn't expect him to look as solid as he's looked. I'm comfortable if he's happy to go out there and operate in space. K'Wan Williams, obviously, that's not even a question. But Diamo Lenore is, again, a testament to the scouting department and this coaching staff. 5th round, for some reason, is gold for this group. I don't know how this kid fell into the 5th round, if I'm being perfectly honest, because you and I both had him high on our pre-draft boards. He was in the top 10 for cornerbacks for all of us with where he was and what he did at Oregon. Somehow, some way, again, Pac-12 talent gets missed and the 49ers are able to capitalize on it. I'll take that all day, every day.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, especially with the Pac-12. And then also he was getting kind of pigeonholed into playing the nickel in the slot. I thought that was where he fit the best. I thought that was where he was going to move. It made sense because K'Wan Williams, might be here for 1 year and then gone. But they started him on the outside, and he's proven that he can play on the outside, and now he's proven that he can play on the inside a little bit. So he's a dynamic player who's going to have, long-lasting effects on this 49ers roster.
That is for sure. And now we get to the last bit of position players that aren't special teams. The safety room, Anthony. The safeties, not that hard of a choice. This was very, very easy. It was very, very simple, and it starts with, obviously, Jaquiski Tartt, who is going to be the starting safety, one of the starting safeties heading into the season, along with his running mate and high school best bud, Jimmy Ward. And for some reason, it decided to skip over and show a little bit of tease. So now you know who potentially 3 is. But those 2 are going to be your starting safeties for the 49ers going into the 2021 season.
Yeah, once he was out there playing, once Tartt was out there playing in this game, and he started with the first team, you knew that it was probably a good chance he's going to start against Detroit. I think he went out there and proved that he looked healthy and he was able to stay healthy during the game overall. A little nick up, but he was able to get back out there. He was laying big-time hits and being in the right position. So you can count on him and Jimmy Ward to do what they do. You need to have people behind them just in case. Both of them have had an injury history. It appears Jimmy Ward is over it. Can Tartt be over it? Hopefully, because when both of them are on the field, the 49ers are just a better football team.
Accurate indeed. They need to both stay healthy and both need to get it done. But you know what? If they don't, Ant, I'm not too worried because Talanoa Hufanga, what? How? This fast? I expected him to potentially develop and be something in the future, but I was thinking 2 to 3 years down the road 3 being the likely scenario, and maybe even longer than that before we saw this guy really hitting his stride as a player? No, not even close. This guy looks ready right now to play significantly in pieces, right? Being a specific kind of role piece that D'Amico Ryans can move on the chessboard and use in ways to attack the offense. By the time we get to next year, yeah, this guy could be ready to start.
Always thought he was going to be dynamic in the box, playing against the screen passes, helping out in the run, being able to blitz the quarterback. We didn't expect for him to be so much improved in the pass game. He's gotten so much better about reading coverage, using coverage concepts, reading routes, seeing what the offense is doing, and then being able to be in the right spots. He hasn't really been tested as much as I would like, but maybe that's just because his coverage is so good. So, one of those things that I would love to see the all-22 film on a lot of this stuff.
Gosh darn you, NFL.
I know. That way we could really watch him. But there's a big improvement in his game from the time he was in college. He put in the work. He deserves it. And now he's going to get himself some playing time all throughout the year and develop. And maybe next year we don't have as big a question at that safety position alongside Jimmy Ward that we thought we were going to have. Because even if Tart leaves, now we have a Talanoa Hufanga who looks like he's going to be poised and set up to step in and take over that role.
He is primed and ready for success, and I'm all for it. I want to see everything that Talanoa Hufanga brings to the table because so far the development has been astronomically noticeable. I imagine it's going to continue. I mean, I don't know if it can continue at the astronomic pace that it's continuing at right now, but it's going to keep progressing forward. We know that. We've seen what these defensive coaches have done with this talent in the past. What they're already doing right now in the present, the future looks bright for Talanoa Hufanga and this defense.
At least he makes an impact on special teams. At most, he makes a huge impact on the defense as well.
Absolutely, and that'd be huge for the 49ers because I don't think they were expecting it. I know I wasn't at all, even a little bit.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Listen, number 4, this was easy for us. I know for some people it was hard. It was very hard. Clinton Dix, you like him a lot. You like the things he does. That's great. Tavon Wilson is the 4th safety.
We've seen him in practice. We've seen both of them in practice. Not so much a because he came at the very end, but we've seen Tavon Wilson operate with this defense, taking a lot of reps with the first team defense and being able to play very well. He fits in very nice with Jimmy Ward when he's out there. They have a nice chemistry. The way he's able to play in the box, play in the deep third, where he's more successful, I believe, in the deep third than a lot of the other safeties. So you want this guy's versatility on the field. You go ahead and you make sure you keep him. He's the one that's been there the longest. He's the one that understands what's going on. And I think so far he's outplayed Clinton Dix. Clinton Dix has played well, just not good enough to beat out Tavon Wilson.
I agree with you. And look, Tavon Wilson was running solely with the ones while Tart was out for the majority of camp. Even when Clinton Dix first came in, Tavon Wilson was still running with the ones. It wasn't until really this week that you saw Clinton Dix operating with that first-string defense. And I don't believe it's because he's taking over Tavon Wilson's spot. It's because they're trying to get a look at him out there with Talanoa Hufanga and that first group and just see how he operates. Towards the end of that Raiders game, you saw him and Tavon Wilson operating out there in space, together out there, opposite of each other. So again, Tavon Wilson showing the flexibility in the variety of ways he can impact this team. And I think that's the truth, right? The honest-to-God truth is Tavon Wilson could probably play either safety spot if you really, truly need him to. But he just has done more with the time that he's had. And I think Clinton Dix I think he does still have something in the tank. I think he's shown something. But it just might not be here in San Francisco.
Yeah, Clinton Dix is going to be on a football team this year. Whether he's with the 49ers eventually, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens and who go ahead and pick him up. But he's definitely done a good job of proving to the NFL that he can still play. You would like to think somebody's going to give him a shot. But you're right, Tavon Wilson being able to have the flexibility to play either safety position, and the way that D'Amico Ryans has played the safeties this year, where they're just more like playing left and right safety and not so much playing strong and free safety. The way they're able to both play the deep third or play in the box has been very fun to watch. It gives them a lot of flexibility, and we believe Tavon Wilson just gives them the best option right now. So you know what that means, Alex? 25 players on offense, 25 players on defense, and there's 3 spots left.
I wonder who those 3 could possibly be. Oh, Tabor Pepper, Mitch Wisniewski, Robbie Gould. And that's 53.
Yeah.
Holy cow almighty.
We made it. And I don't know how we made it because some of these decisions were absolutely hard. It was tough. If we are dead on, I will be shocked because these were some tough decisions for us. I can only imagine what would happen if we had all of the intel that these coaches have, all the film that they have, and all of the medical information that they have. They're going to make some very, very tough decisions. and we get to find all that out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Listen, Dave Lombardi, you and Thanos have been going at it back and forth, right? Thanos is taking some shots. The Cutback appreciates everything you do. If you ever want to throw a login to some old 22 film because you're a writer and I know you have access to it, just hit us up on Twitter. You can just DM us, and that'll be great, and that'll help us with Project 53 next year, but that's for next year, so just keep that in the back of your mind, Dave. We appreciate it, all the hard work that you do. Look, this was tough. This wasn't easy.
No.
We didn't have access to all the things we hoped we were going to have access to be able to even break it down even further, but with the tools we had, the eyes that we have, right, the set of eyeballs that are here at the Cutback, I feel like we did a pretty gosh darn good job.
Yeah, I think we will at least have a lot of these guys right. Being able to predict what Kyle Shanahan is going to do is not easy, for sure. And there's no way that anyone actually knows what the guy's going to do until the guy does it. So it's gonna depend. It's gonna be fun breaking down what they actually decide and where the differences are. And that way we can kind of get into it and discuss. They must have done it because of this reason. It will get a very good idea of what Kyle Shanahan wants to see from his football team and how he wants it constituted. But either way it goes, the 49ers have a very, very deep 53-man roster, and they are going to be a tough team to play this year. I feel sorry for the other teams. You guys have got it in for you because these guys are tough.
It's not going to be fun at all. Look, let us know what you thought about Project 53 down below in the comments section right now. Did we hit this thing out of the park? All 53 guys? Did we screw the pooch somewhere? Jawan Jennings deserves to be on the show. How could you put Jalen Hurd? We want to hear all of those things in the comment section so we can have a great conversation on it, because this is a wonderful conversation to have, and we're going to find out how accurate we were in literally about 24 hours. In about 1 day's time, we're going to know. So let us know down below what you thought, and while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You're still here. We're an hour and 6 minutes into this episode. I don't know, hit that like button. You stayed for the whole thing. Make sure you hit it. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. Hop over to the Discord as well so you can talk about it with us over there in Discord. You can let us know in real time live how much you hate it from us or love it. Either way, no matter what it is, hop over to the Cutback shop as well. There's so many ways for you to engage and interact with this community. Don't miss out on any of it. And Ant, they should probably also hop over to Patreon, huh?
Yeah, hop over to Patreon because an episode of Big Yikes is going to be debuting today, where we're going to be having a lot of fun going over some fun takes that are out there, and just having a good time with it. Not taking anything serious, just having fun, and that sometimes it's fun to do that. I know at some point we're going to be laughing at ourselves as well, because there's no way you can be 100% all the time, and the only way to enjoy it is just take a step back and laugh. But you want to join the Patreon. You want to get on there so you can see episodes of Big Yikes as they come out, or also a 49ers Cutback in Time, where you get to go back in time with us as we look at 49ers history and all the great moments that have happened, some of the big stories. The next, we had the one with Joe Montana coming back in 1992 and that story surrounding that. And then the next one, we go all the way back to the 50s. So that'll be exciting. So if you are not signed up for Patreon, sign up for that because there's going to be continuous content. And if you're all about fantasy football, Alex is going to have some fantasy football shows that are going to be coming up there pretty soon. So you want to jump into that.
This week, Ant.
This week.
There
you go. Fantasy football coming this week with Alex's show. So make sure you jump over there and get his insight on what is going on and what to expect. It's going to be a lot of fun. So there's many ways to get involved with the 49ers Cutback community, whether it's on YouTube, it's on Patreon, it's on Discord, it's on the socials, or by buying some of this sweet merch like we have on. Go ahead and do that and interact with us. More ways to interact than ever before. We're doing great things here. We're growing this community. We're growing the content. I'm galaxy braining up the fantasy football stuff. Make sure you're on Patreon for that. But man, Ant, this was a long, fun, and insightful Project 53. Let's see what happens on Tuesday though, and let's see if anything from our Project 53 video ends up in Big Yikes next week. Yeah, it could be. And you definitely want to join us too once we start breaking down what the 53-man roster officially looks like, because we'll be coming at you with that as well, and that'll be exciting.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Still some time, though. So just get prepped, get the seatbelt ready, stay locked in, stay loaded. We got face-off for you tomorrow. We got a breakdown of that 53-man roster tomorrow as well. You don't want to miss any of that. And until next time, 49ers fans, you stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.